Thank you for having me here today, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about the power of data and its capabilities to improve project outcomes at the end, and accordingly also our confidence to get projects delivered on time, on budget, and with the defined intended benefits. So I think we are all quite familiar with the increasing importance and value of data, as it's quite present in our daily lives, right? I mean, just think about our activities on social media, our shopping experiences on Amazon, watching movies on Netflix, etc. I think we're all familiar with that. So I think it's clear that data, generally speaking, became very powerful in all areas of our lives, and definitely also in business environments. So lots of digital transformation initiatives are happening in organizations across various industries. And I actually think that COVID-19, so the pandemic, gave such initiatives even a further push with a shift to working from home and the resulting increase in digital communication. And all those transformation initiatives, you have to remember that they actually are delivered by projects, right? So, and to make businesses more competitive, faster at the end, and because of that way also more complex than they actually used to be. So I think a logical consequence is to apply the same concepts to the project management discipline as well, to make projects faster and to keep up with the pace that businesses at the end are setting. So it means to make use of data and its capabilities for the delivery of projects. But the question is, of course, if data really can make project delivery a more successful and a more effective practice. And why would we even need help in project management in the first place? So those questions I'm trying to answer in my presentation today. So first, let's talk about data, actually. Let's shift this. Okay. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about data. So as mentioned, data has gained quite a bit of importance, right? And result is actually that it gets referred to as the new oil. You may have heard that, and or sometimes even the new currency, right? And so you may have heard those metaphors when it comes to data. So in a way, it is an appropriate comparison, as oil used to be something that is actually in high demand. However, such comparison, I think, could lead also to certain misconceptions, because oil is known as a resource that is used only once, and at the same time it's also polluting the environment, right? We know that, and therefore it's not really sustainable, right? So we became aware of this as well. And data is actually something that is sustainable, and even it replicates itself, as more data will generate even more data on top of it. So there's an exponential increase of data. However, data isn't really something new, right? So data has always been around in some shape or form, and we also use data already in projects, of course, right? For example, by producing project schedules, identifying risk, risk logs, etc. It's all data, and so data is nothing really new in the project management area. What is new, however, is the amount of data out there. So digitization and advanced technology has caused this explosion of data, right? It means eventually that more and more of the world is being described and captured with data. So it provides more information and knowledge, and it gives us therefore also a capability to see things in a much clearer way, and also to find solutions to problems which so far we were not really able to solve. And this provides kind of power, right, which makes data obviously highly valuable, as those insights that we get from data, they help us to understand the whole world much better. And the more data, the more insights we will get about basically anything, right? In that sense, data has indeed a very high value that can be compared with the value that so far we have seen only in resources such as oil. So the next question is, coming back to the context of project management, what precisely should data solve for us with the delivery of projects? It is effectively this problem here. The problem is that project success rates are really at an all-time low, right? So there are numerous surveys and statistics about project success rates, and it is indeed a widely discussed topic, right? And I think PMI's recent surveys say something about 60%, if I'm not mistaken, of projects being successful. Other surveys indicate only about 20% of success rates. It is obviously very difficult to get this really accurate because any survey really looks at different samples, right? And this one here, at least what I've seen, is far the worst outcome in terms of the numbers, right? And that is based on research conducted by the University of Oxford for over 3,000 projects, mega projects in this case. And of those projects, there were 27% that came in on budget or even better as the given budget target. 2.8% came in on budget and on time, but only 0.2% of those projects came in on budget, on time, and on benefits. So the number of truly successful projects is apparently much lower than we usually think. So other surveys look at product success from a slightly different angle, right? Focusing maybe only on meeting those project targets, right? Partially, like, what value a project provides, for example. Now, meeting the value proposition of a project certainly is the most critical target, right? But let's be honest, a successful project should meet all the targets set, because any overrun, like overrunning the project schedule or the cost targets, right? It will cost money at the end, and actually, it may be also impact then the value target as well because of a schedule or cost overrun. So to improve project management success, and eventually also project success, we should consult data to guide us and fill that information gap that we apparently have to bring those projects over the finish line on their targets. And to make that a little bit more tangible, think about this as using an advanced navigation system in your car, right? When it comes to using data and project management. So this is an example of digital transformation as it happens all over the place, also in organizations. And such digitalization helps us to become more accurate in our decisions, fill the gaps of information that we have for our decision-making. So here data is collected to provide information about, in this case, where we are, where we're going, how fast we're going, maybe any traffic jams that possibly are in front of us, and it gives us recommendations on which route to take. So you are obviously in the driver's seat and take those insights to make decisions. So data is being collected, it's prepared and presented in a way so that it fills at the end our knowledge gap, so to say. And in this case, it could be to get insights on traffic jams or any closed streets or anything else that would impact our journey. And this results then in data-informed decision-making. But the way we are currently operating in project management is kind of comparable to this old-fashioned way, with a map in the hand, looking for a direction which very likely takes much longer to reach the destination, potentially leads us even into a completely different direction or wrong direction because of some misinterpretation of data. And we would miss on other valuable insights, right? Like, for example, risks of traffic jams, etc. Okay, so to enable data for project management and to inform us and fill that knowledge gap that I was referring to. It is useful to understand how data makes its way to knowledge and ultimately also wisdom. I'm going to explain that to more detail. So data simply stands for facts and figures. So data alone may not be of value really, right? Especially when it comes to unstructured data such as video or image information, emails, also unstructured data. And such information must be processed and structured in order to extract value from it. So we have to turn data into information. So in projects, this could be, for example, vendor-related data about a situation of a vendor. Maybe that vendor is in some economic struggle and is about to go bankrupt, and we were not informed about this. But such data possibly is available only in some unstructured format on social media, like a tweet, for example. Information then is the form of data that is processed, it's organized, it is structured, and it provides some meaning. So information adds meaning and it improves the reliability of the data. It ensures understandability and ultimately also reduces uncertainty. And this could be project plans, risk registers, financial project information, etc. So imagine you're taking over a project and inherit all those artifacts. You're getting information, but you may not get yet the full context because data is at the information level and we need to turn it into actual knowledge. So knowledge takes that information and provides an understanding of a subject. So what does that mean exactly? It means that information is combined with human experience, understanding and intuition to draw conclusions from information. So we have an understanding, we connect the dots and can take action on it. So one example could be a conclusion that based on past performance and expected delivery dates, let's say we need to ramp up the team with some more senior people and with some specific expertise in some skill XYZ, right? So what then is wisdom? So wisdom is essentially a collection of this knowledge, so applicable proven knowledge. So while knowledge is derived from a collection of information, wisdom is derived from a collection of knowledge. And that means really insights at the end. So wisdom is accumulated knowledge. And the emphasis here is really on accumulated, because we need to look at the sum of knowledge gained over time in projects, various projects, to identify then patterns, to get true insights. And this is where we want to be ultimately, right? Without insights, we don't really have anything. So why do I say that actually? One of the biggest problems, I think, is that often the existing value is being devalued in projects. So it takes the opposite path. So you see that on the right-hand side where the arrow goes down. And I like to take that example of lessons learned. So I've seen this very often where teams are running a lessons learned session or an agile retrospective, let's say. We scribble things on Post-it notes, have some discussion about what went bad, what went okay, maybe take a picture of all this with a mobile phone and then move just on to the next project. But where is all this information that has been discussed and the knowledge we got out of it? So at best, such information will be stored in some folder on SharePoint or something which is accessible only by a certain project team. But it is not shared with other projects which potentially could benefit from it. So it means such knowledge never really makes its way to wisdom. And worse, even knowledge stays then only within that particular team. But once this team does not exist anymore because, for example, a project ends, knowledge basically goes back to information and sometimes then even back to the data level. For example, if we only uploaded a picture of our lessons learned, Post-it notes to some folder, that's an example. So such data becomes hidden data, which is called dark data. So it kind of feels like when we, when we are at home and we separate waste at home, right? And then throw all this carefully separated waste because we are like good citizens, right? We want to separate waste, but then throw all this carefully separated waste into the same container altogether. So what is really the point? And we have similar problems with other historical project information, right? Such as risk information, any risk strategies or solutions, response plans, etc. Everything that we have elaborated and used in a particular project, or project schedules and task estimates. So all this is valuable information that can help us to not repeat our planning shortfalls from the past, but actually improve on our project delivery. And as part of a particular project, such data and information makes it to knowledge level, but once the project finishes, knowledge goes often back to information and sometimes even back to the data level. And what that means in the end is that we have taken a lot of effort to build up knowledge and then simply throw it away. And this way we effectively turn valuable data assets into what I refer to as dark data. Or in other words, data that just sits on company infrastructure, taking up storage, but is not being used ever again. And all this while such data actually could help delivering new projects. And not many people actually know that overall dark and idle data, so regardless of project management data, but overall dark idle data makes up a massive portion of all that available and stored data in organizations. And that's here per IBM, that accounts to over 80% of data. And there are some other sources even saying that it's probably even more than 90%. And such data is not being used at all, although there possibly is some value in it, right? So it does not mean that all dark and unstructured data is of value. There's certainly data that is of no value at all and is just stored because storage is just cheap, right? So let's store it just in case, right? That's often the way of doing it. So such dark data that I was referring to, of dark data of no value at all, for example, could be like old system log files, right? But if we look at project management artifacts like project schedules, risk registers, etc., I think we can say that such data would be certainly of value for future projects. So such data needs to be treated properly and recycled instead of just thrown away. And that's where data culture comes into the picture. So something that actually supports the data-related work, and which I think is very critical and should be one of the initial steps, right, to get to more data-informed practice. So what is meant by data culture? And in this case, it is basically, a project data culture, let's say, right? But what is meant by this, right? So there needs to be, one thing is that there needs to be is data awareness. And this means that data and its value needs to be appreciated within the organization. So everyone involved, especially in decision-making processes, they need to understand how data actually contributes to the decision-making, so that there's a common understanding and a common language also, and also an engagement from all the different players in a project. There needs to be data literacy, right? That means really the ability to read, write, and comprehend data. So you need to understand data. So it's like a new language to be learned. So it means that project professionals, they ultimately need to be skilled up so that they can properly create, capture, store, manage, analyze project data and make sense out of it. And another important thing is that people need to realize that data is not a threat. It is actually the cure to the problem that I was highlighting at the beginning. And many people actually feel threatened, as they feel like that data becomes too powerful and effectively would, take over some decision making, because data gets actually a vote in the decision-making process. So some people actually are afraid that they would lose their control. But those people who say that, they likely have actually lost control already and are navigating projects like playing the lottery already. So the whole topic of data culture is obviously linked to behaviors of project professionals that need to change, and therefore it will require a shift of mindset. But one question that I often get is where to exactly start with this whole journey towards a data-informed project delivery practice, right? So one thing is certainly around gaining the awareness of how a project management practice could benefit from data. So I refer to this as data awareness and also data literacy. And while I just provided actually a glimpse on the benefits here, right? The impact from data is actually enormous, and a lot of case studies could help make that more tangible. But one fundamental thing is obviously data, and to make it available to actually start making use of it. And here's some thoughts on it, right? To how to get started. So make sure that all relevant project information is actually captured in the first place in some digital format. That's obviously important. And if you look at it closely, there's still an enormous amount of data and information that is not properly captured. I mean, of course, it does not mean that we cannot use pen and paper anymore, but we should make an effort to digitize as much as possible. Just like, tools, and you're probably familiar with, like Jira and Confluence, they took like Scrum and Kanban boards to a digital format, right? And there are other online tools like Miro, for example, right, to draw up concepts, mind maps, and this sort of thing. And I started taking meeting notes, right, writing on an iPad, and there's an app transforming my handwriting into actual letters, which I think it's amazing. I mean, of course, those are only examples, and any tool obviously should make us more efficient and effective, but nowadays you find many ways to be efficient and practical at the same time. Another point is to locate and standardize all the different data sources, right? So how are we actually doing project schedules in an organization? In which format? How do we capture task estimates? How do we capture risks and issues and so on? It's important to create a consistent approach there, right? And that we store it in some consistent format. And eventually all data should be stored in a centralized way. So in some central repository, let's say. And even if that is just a folder in SharePoint for now as a starting point, maybe with some subfolders there, according to the type of data, it is a starting point, right? So diligence and adopting this habit to categorize your data is, I think, key. So see it like when we go to the container to throw away our bottles or our waste, right? So a container for plastic bottles and for brown glass, white glass, and so on, right? So what needs to be done is to categorize project data and collect those in the different containers. Microsoft project schedules here, risk logs there, lessons learned there, and so forth, right? I think you get the picture. And once we have the data, we have to make proper use of it by applying the right data skills to practically turn something initially rather loose, like an initial problem statement, to something that is refined based on collected data and human experience as well, and the right interpretation of information. So you basically apply data literacy skills here, skills that need to be adopted by all the different project stakeholders, especially the ones that are involved in decision-making. But I mean, it doesn't mean that everyone needs to become a data scientist or some techie of some sort, right? But the important thing is to adopt skills of asking critical questions and to challenge things, asking analytical questions, adopting a research type of mindset, and an objective or even challenging view on data. Because in a nutshell, we have to see it this way, right? Data and analytics are there to disprove our biased thinking. And our biased thinking is usually dominated by preconceived opinions. Now, data tries to challenge and question our decisions by providing insights that we are not aware of, really, most of the time at least. But at the same time, we as humans have insights that data might not be aware of, right? So insights based on intuition and human experience. So it means we challenge the data as well. Or in other words, we actively look for other data and information that would disprove it at a certain point. So to reduce a biased view, such as a confirmation bias, for anything that data suggests, we should always make an attempt to find information which would point us into a different direction. And this altogether eventually leads to an informed judgment. So the decision needs to be monitored by applying a suitable review mechanism to ensure that the decided solution generates expected value and benefits. And such mechanism should essentially follow the concept of fail fast, learn fast. And this, at the end, would reduce also cognitive biases that otherwise could lead to situations where the failure of a decision is being ignored and it's not being learned from. And this one here, extract this signal. This here is just to emphasize further the importance of adopting such data literacy skills that I was referring to. Because there's an ocean of data out there, right? And it is important for project professionals to extract the signal from the noise. And that is to extract the relevant information and the true value from available data. So the signal is the relevant data that we need to leverage for our project decisions, while noise is data that is not relevant for our particular problem, and it would just distract us, and therefore it needs to be separated. So you have to remember, data may hold a ton of potential value for a project, but it's not only worthless if it's just thrown away, it's also worthless if no one is able to extract useful and timely insights from it. So first of all, you need to be clear on your goal and what problem you're trying to solve or what decision you're aiming for. So what are you truly looking for, right? So it sounds easier as it is, as we often get distracted and do not elaborate really on the core problem. And what also is critical is to remove our bias as much as possible. So this is usually not fully possible, but we need to have at least the awareness of our human biases and therefore also be more skeptical when we look at data. So why certain figures show up the way they do? We need to ask the right questions. So we need to really look beyond numbers, and we need to find meaning in the data and connect the dots really between what we see as part of our analysis and how it links to our objective. So it is a skill that comes with practice, obviously, but yeah, what eventually will play a crucial role here is also something like data visualization and data storytelling, but those are topics that would fill up another session, I would say. Okay, so it certainly would be wrong to say that a transition to a data-informed project management practice would be an easy journey. You can imagine that there will be some hurdles in the way. I mean, that's for sure, but I think we have a great opportunity for our profession of project management. And if you're at the beginning of such journey, then one advice is to not fall into the trap of ramping up too quickly with advanced technology like artificial intelligence, for example, right? I mean, of course, eventually AI will be very useful to make sense of all this data and this data ocean out there. But before even thinking about it, one needs to get the basics straight first. And this means to first get an awareness of how data really works. What kind of data do we need? How do we produce and recycle data? So essentially, we need to adopt those habits first, treat project data like a real asset and start organizing it. So it requires a good foundation, and that starts with a data assessment, a resulting data strategy, but mostly a functioning data culture with appropriate data awareness and behavior. So I think it is a key to reestablish project delivery confidence and eventually also project success. Thanks a lot for your attention, and I hope this presentation was insightful to you and helps you to initiate a change in the project delivery approach within your organization, or at least start a discussion around this. It's certainly something that is difficult to fit into a presentation of 30 minutes, but If you're interested to discuss this topic in any way further, maybe even your specific journey or challenges within your organization, I would be more than happy to hear from you. I have listed here my contact details. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you like, or send me an email or visit my website. So again, thanks a lot for your attention, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you.